Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of Superman.
Superman, Batman, The Flash. Names heard by every American at some point or another. If you have not seen a movie or TV show starring a superhero, throughout their illustrious history, superheroes have gone through several transformations in relation to the culture that gave rise to their existence.
The most famous superhero of all time, Superman, initiated the golden age of comics in 1938 when American-born writer Jerry Siegel and Canadian-born artist Joe Shuster brought their minds together. Standing as a sort of populist statement, Superman stood up for the average guy who had suffered so much in the face of the Depression. Facing off against the great threats of Nazi Germany, Superman upset the concept of the Übermensch by standing up for those weaker than himself.
Taking a hand in the creation of Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, the Hulk, and Captain America, the most obvious influence on the creation of superheroes remains Jewish. Just as Jewish immigrants were marginalized by society, the superheroes had to dress up in disguise in order to hide their true identity from society or risk becoming ostracized.
The initial message of superheroes, standing up for the laws of society, soon became politically charged with the introduction of World War II, where characters like Captain America are seen pulverizing Hitler. One current comic book writer, Frank Miller, states, "Superman punched out Hitler, so did Captain America. That's one of the things they're here for." After the end of World War II, the Golden Age petered out, but not before atomic-powered superheroes, who would continue on through the Silver Age, showed up on the scene.
As political enemies changed, the antagonists in comics changed as well. With communism on the rise and the atomic bomb altering the American worldview, many of these threats in the superhero world began to reflect the real-world crises. Superheroes such as the Hulk and the Fantastic Four exemplified the atomic threat when they gained superpowers from radiation. As communism began to threaten the idea of American individualism, more relatable heroes than superhuman aliens appeared, such as Peter Parker, more famously known as Spider-Man, who had to deal with growing up along with super responsibilities. These superheroes differed from the previous age in that Superman is a hero who dressed up as one of us, Spider-Man is one of us dressed up as a hero. These stories of ordinary people gone extraordinary and serving their country is reflected by JFK and his statement,
"Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country."
The age leading up to the creation of the Watchmen, the Bronze Age, exhibited a distinct trend towards darker subject matter. Though there is no single event that can be said to signal the beginning of this age, if any one event can mark the beginning, it is the death of Spider-Man's girlfriend, Gwen Stacy. This reflects the end of the hippie movement as it devolved into the hedonistic drug movement. The death of Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy, Jimi Hendrix, and other notable people towards the end of the 60s characterizes the dark turn of pop culture.
Immediately following the Bronze Age, the publication of Watchmen heralded the beginning of the Modern Age. The Modern Age is characterized by more realistic and dark psychological profiling of the main characters. As the defining comic of the era, Watchmen's story brings a lot of the cultural and societal problems to the fore. The first cultural conflict is represented by the extremely advanced technology present in the book, brought about by the only superpowered hero in the book. This technology has led to a complacent and confident America, reflecting fears in the 1980s embodied by the movement behind Reagan professing the end of America under the treads of Soviet tanks, unless Americans woke up from their pop culture. Further Reagan influences can be found in the dismissal of drug culture throughout the book, with many of the characters concerned about the downward trend of society, a real-world concern of the Reagan moral majority. Rorschach most embodies this idea, talking about it in his journal.
Rorschach's journal, October 12th, 1985. Dog carcass in alley this morning. Tire tread on burst stomach. This city's afraid of me. I've seen its true face. The streets are extended gutters, and the gutters are full of blood. And when the drains finally scab over, all the vermin will drown. The accumulated filth of all their sex and murder will foam up around their waists. And all the whores and politicians will look up and shout, "Save us." And I'll whisper, "No."
Some influences are continuous from the beginning of the Cold War, such as the threat of nuclear war. Another example is Dr. Manhattan, the only real superhuman, who got his powers from a nuclear research accident. Dr. Manhattan goes on in the story to represent the idea of a clockwork universe, believing that the universe is a predictable series of events. However, towards the end of the story, Morsh strikes this theme down with this scene.
Only you that emerged to distill so specific a form from all that chaos. It's like turning air into gold. A miracle.
Also evident is the psychological element of the story. The psychology of the heroes is explored in depth, and the principles that they profess are often subverted by their actual motives and beliefs. The biggest example is Rorschach, who, as his namesake implies, provides the basis for the psychological profile. When he finally describes what it is that makes him Rorschach, he describes the case of a kidnapped girl who was killed and fed to the kidnapper's dogs. Rorschach describes how he sees the true face of humanity as an incurable evil, and his only purpose as a hero is not to save people, but to punish evil.
Following the modern age, mainstream superheroes left the comic book genre altogether, most going straight to the movies. The movies, for the most part, follow the initial comics, though many of the conflicts evolved. One great example is the spider that gave Peter Parker his powers. Initially a radioactive spider, in the movie, the spider became a bioengineered creature, perfectly emulating the real-world fears of anthrax, cloning, and biologically altered life forms.
As video games came to prominence, the protagonist took the role of superhero to a new level. Where the story used to be written by another, now the player takes on the role of being the hero. This can pan out in a wide array of outcomes, with the player choosing good, bad, or neither when determining his actions in the virtual world. This replacing of the superhero with the player represents the casting down of the ideal hero, and putting the common man in the position of moral dilemma and the power to enact those decisions.
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad.
The history of superheroes in American culture reflects the ups and downs of American society itself. The trends of superheroes also reflect the general trends found whenever humans create an ideal such as God or society. As human thinking on these subjects evolves, the thinking generally begins by debunking their position and bringing them down to our level, and leads inexorably towards a darker view on the subject until eventually we replace them with ourselves. This trend is reflected specifically by the history of superheroes.
Mr. Superman no here.
Well, we're looking for a missing...
I know. Mr. Superman, he know is here.
Yeah, okay. Well, can you just give him this flyer?
No, I have no money.
Just take this flyer, and if you see this baby...
No.